Hello everybody. Welcome back to Gelvin Valley, Farming Simulator 15. Map created by Wild Wild Wes. We have just completed baling. This particular season I sold the round baler that we've used a number of times on here. Decided to rent this particular baler. And I like this one, although it's a little ticklish to get used to. I forget the name. Nadel, that's what it is. Or Nadel, I'm not sure how you say it. With the rakes to bring in the windrows into the baler. Plus, I like it. I don't have to stop while I'm baling and unload the bale like we had to with the round baler. So I'm going to be returning it to the shop here. I wouldn't have to do that. I've also rented this particular tractor. And I think, well, I don't know. You know, I'm driving the whole thing back. I'm half tempted because it's a bigger tractor than I'm used to working with. And so I'm thinking I'll just rent a trailer over here, the trailer that I use to pick up bales, and use that to haul all of these in versus using my own little tractor. So we'll get on down the road here, and I wanted to continue too on what we were talking about, or what I was talking about the last episode. I don't know how many episodes this will stretch out to. I got to thinking here the other day about pet peeves as something maybe to talk about in here. I know we all have pet peeves, and probably all of us are the cause of someone's pet peeve out there, and most of us are probably blissfully ignorant, you know, that we are causing someone else some distress. But as the last episode ended, I was in the middle of talking about cell phone uses, and I think right as my timer dinged, I was talking about using cell phones, you know, at mealtime. And yeah, I guess this could apply to the restaurant or what have you, but uh, I think of it primarily for home. Now, do I turn this in? Give me just a second here. Oops, I'm weaving like a drunken sailor. Yeah, I think this is the return. So long, good friend. You were a good machine. Let me see if this is where... Aha, okay. Gone, gone. Okay, I'll keep the tractor. I think I still have that on rent. I'm gonna get... I think it's a modded trailer I need to get. Up in the baling technology. Okay, one of the Marshall trailers. I think I've done a green and a blue before. Maybe this time I'll try a red. And I don't know how long this will take. 2 hours? Alright. I can spring for 134 bucks. Okie doke, let's go get our trailer. When I was growing up, the family mealtime was held pretty much sacred. It, well, some of my fondest memories growing up happened at the family dinner table. This is where, you know, we all sat down as a family, mom, dad. I grew up in a family of 7 kids. I and my siblings, it was a place, it was just a happy place where, and this is something I hope, this is kind of an aside, I hope every kid could grow up having both parents and a safe environment for you to learn who you are, figure out life, learn to get along, laugh, cry, whatever with your family, and learn to relate to others. And it's very special, and I know I'm not alone in that. It seems so much anymore. A lot of families, they have forgotten this simple thing, and when they get together and have a meal, they park in front of a television, or they don't take time to sit down together and be together, talk, interrelate. They get a hurried bite, and then they're so busy they take off to do whatever they need to do. And you know what? I get it. We're all busy, but it makes it all the more special to have that time. There we go. It's a bee that puts it on there. Now, why am I... Is it change side? Oh, O gets rid of. Okay, maybe it doesn't. Oh, I know what it is. I gotta physically hit B when I get close here to get them on there. All right, I can roll with the punches. Anyway, I really appreciate the mealtime, and and I guess as a man with my own family now, that time is very special to me too. Because, we are all busy. My kids are busy too. They got stuff on the go. And of course, I would never want to take that away from them. We got stuff to do. Totally get it. But while we're at the table, can you put the cell phone away so we can talk as a family? That while we have those few precious moments, because there's not that many of them, where we can just focus on each other and not have to look at that silly device or get distracted. And most of the time, I'm not talking that it's something, nefarious or anything like that. It's just attention, I guess, and being deliberate about when you have that time to be willing to share with others. Now, let me check here my map real quick. Actually, maybe I can look at this. Hmm. Looks like I need to take a trip up to the Stonehenge field. All right, here we go. Go down to the gate, and I'll head up to Stonehenge. Field 43. So we kind of have a rule in our home. Whoop! Oh, that's okay. I can drive right through him, right? Yep, we fix that. We have a rule in our home, or at least I have a rule, that when we're sitting down to eat supper, we need to be at the table, all of us, and have not have our cell phones on us. Every now and again, something happens and we need to get to the thing or whatever, but I just don't like cell phones at the table. To me, this is a time where we do what I did as a kid. This is where you learn to talk to your siblings, your parents, you share, and and I can't say when I was a kid I was always that I always played along. What's the thing parents want to do? How was your day? Fine. The kids say they don't provide details, and so, but this is where you have opportunity to share and come together, and I hate cell phones spoiling that somehow. So I'm sure by now you probably all think I'm quite the tyrant in the home and at the dinner table. I don't know. Maybe my kids would say that I am. I just, cell phones have their place, but only a few places, in my humble opinion. They're just a tool. And it's amazing. I know people have said this before, with all the tools for communication that we have now. It almost seems like our ability to communicate with our fellow human beings has gone downhill, if anything, from years ago when they didn't have all these fancy tools. Oh my, did I come up here just for a single bale? So I did, it appears. Well, I'm gonna head right on back out. Hopefully I don't get caught in the fence. We're gonna head down the road. I better be careful how I drive. Put on my spectacles again to see if I can get my next one here. Oh, this one. I think I mentioned in the previous episode, I'm not a coffee drinker. So maybe this has something to do with coffee and I just don't understand because I don't drink coffee. But I hate coffee slurping. We have this guy at our office in particular. He gets himself, and maybe it's the heat, that must have something to do with it. He gets a piping hot cup of coffee, and then he slurps every time he takes a drink out of it. And maybe he's just rattling it over his lips or whatever because it's hot and he's trying to cool it off, but it's just, it's just, maybe other people don't hear it, um, but every time he has a cup in his hand, I just start cringing because I know what I'm going to hear. But you know what? It's funny. I think when I started talking about this in the previous episode, just coming up with the list of these things has forced me to look at my own self too. And one of the things I discovered, as I was thinking about slurping coffee, well, one of the things is asking myself, well, do you slurp when you drink stuff? And it turned out I was. I started trying to pay more attention to myself because one of my vices was kind of drinking soda. I try not to have too much of it, but I've noticed that when I drink from it, the top part of the metal, the hole where you get the soda out of, I would slurp just slightly to clean off the pop that would gather on the rim of the can. Just a little, you know, and so I started noticing myself doing this, and it's like, how can you be upset at your work colleague who slurps when he's drinking coffee when you yourself are slurping a little bit, just drinking a little bit of soda. So I have to say, I've had to eat some humble pie and clean my own act up a little bit. It's just amazing to me how easy it is to notice someone else's bad habits and all the while ignoring my own. It must just be something to do with human nature. So, but I still don't really appreciate coffee slurping, or really slurping of any kind. Okay, now I think O was fantastic. I wasn't even paying attention to see how much I got. Was that a couple thousand? Maybe it was. Yeah, next time I'll pay attention to my money. Let me cross that one off. Oh, here's another one that's maybe kind of hard to explain. I already explained one that is on the road, and I know we all have our pet peeves on the road. I didn't even write down the one, where there's someone driving slow in the fast lane. That's a very common pet peeve. You know what? I don't like that either, but I didn't even write that down. The one I put in here was car lane merging. And I used to work in a larger city up north, Portland, and oh, hey, I drove right through him. That's probably his pet peeve. He probably doesn't like being driven right through by a tractor. But I worked downtown Portland, and every day I had to go through rush hour. Both morning and afternoon. It just was extra time taken on the road with slow traffic because there were so many people heading the same direction, needing to go to the same area. And so, where I particularly remember this lane merging, if you will, was happening in. Actually, I got to get up the hill. Happening when we would leave at the end of the day. So we're all headed out of town. And I remember this one particular area, there was 2 lanes heading out of downtown. The streets of the inner city just dumped out on this road that took kind of a loop to get out of downtown. 2 lanes went on, but everybody knew that eventually those 2 lanes narrowed into 1 lane, after which it would take you right on to the interstate. Of course, I'm making an assumption here, kind of like I just said. Everybody knew. Well, maybe not everybody knew, but I sure did, because I had been working there for a number of years and had done that route day after day after day. So since I knew that the lanes merged and it merged left, so 2 lanes and then it would merge left, I always would get into the left lane and then I would basically just wait it out, and eventually we would dump onto the interstate, and I could head home. And time after time, it was an irritant to me to watch cars zoom up the right lane and then say, "Oh yeah, we're supposed to merge up here," and they would basically then cut in, which of course made my wait longer. And and in some ways it's ridiculous. You know what? There was 2 lanes. There was no sign there that said you must go in the left lane, if you're heading out onto the interstate. It's just most people heading that way probably knew that's what it was for, and a lot of them ignored it because they wanted a jockey in position to get the best possible position heading out into traffic, which didn't hardly matter a hill of beans anyways, because it was generally stop and go traffic on the road. So they really didn't save themselves that much time at the end of the day. And given they didn't, oops, given that they didn't save themselves much time, neither did I lose much time by being forced to sit there a little bit longer. So that's something I've found with pet peeves, is sometimes, when you really take a hard look at it and examine your own motives, a lot of times it's a case of, what do they say before you point fingers at someone? Watch out that there aren't 3 fingers pointed back at you. And so, in some ways, as I look at that's kind of petty. It's just, just annoying, I guess, that someone would do that, because it's like they're telling the whole world, my schedule and my position is more important than you. So therefore, I'm just going to pull rank here and go around you. And who likes to be treated that way? Or at least that's the dialogue, that runs in, or that can run in a person's head when you're sitting there in traffic and mad because you're not moving very fast and some car does that. You're like, who do you think you are? And you're imagining this conversation in your head of what they must be thinking. And I hope even in saying all this, I'm surely not the only one that does this. Please tell me I'm not alone. To have conversations in cars about, oh, oops, of what you would say to that other driver if you had opportunity. Um, but of course, you would never say to their face, or I wouldn't. So that's a oop. All right. Alright, one more. How many more do I got up here? 1, 2, 3. Oh, not that many. Yeah, I kind of had a hodgepodge as I wrote the list down here of pet peeves, and I just weren't really in any particular order. It's just kind of as it came to me, and this one here is back on cell phones. Um, Going off in church, or, it doesn't have to be, I mean, it could be any situation where cell phones are not supposed to be going off. It could be an intense business meeting somewhere, or I don't go to the movie theater. That's just not my thing. But I've heard people say, if you hear a cell phone go off in there, that a lot of times the person holding the cell phone becomes the recipient of a whole bunch of dirty looks, and or in a funeral, for crying out loud. I almost think I've heard that one time where a cell phone goes off, and there's times uh, when you're at a presentation, or someone's going to speak to you, or whatever it is, a group of people, and the speaker asks everybody to turn their phones on vibrate, turn them off, turn the ringer off, whatever, and some people just flat out don't do that. Now, maybe they have a reason for it. I don't know, but inevitably it seems like there's always someone in a crowd, when it's supposed to be super quiet, and their phone goes off and rings. And I know when it happens at church and it's in the middle of a service, and my wife gets after me a little bit, but I say the embarrassment they get is just when it goes off there, and they know good and well they shouldn't have it on them, or should have it turned off, or whatever. Any embarrassment that they feel, I think they very well deserve. But that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. Phones going off in inopportune times. Although, standards kind of change over time. I remember, oh goodness, and maybe this depends on the culture, time and place and all that, but it seemed like even 15 years ago, I gotta be careful how I say that. I think that'd be about right. If you had a phone go off in a meeting, it was quite a bit more rude than it is today. Now, I think, when I'm in a board meeting or business meeting, and one of the participants has a phone go off, what they typically do now is they will step out of the room and to answer their call, so they don't disturb anyone else. And I guess I'm somewhat used to that. I guess it depends on who the person is. When they do that, if it's someone that needs to be in there hearing it, well, then that's kind of an irritant. Um, but that is something that kind of changes over time too, I guess. Different expectations as we all adapt and get used to the technology that we all carry around. Oh, I forgot to look at my money again. I think I was at 56,000. Now I'm at 62, or was it 58? Yeah, close enough. Back out to the field. And make the corner up here. And then deliver my next pet peeve. Pet peeves are interesting. I know anytime I've ever shared them before, you will have people that say, right on, I can't stand that. And then there's others where there is less of less agreement, and maybe it's because it's like, oh, that would be me that does that kind of thing, and I'm not going to admit that. I tell you, I think I said in my first, I can't even stay in my right lane. I need to keep my glasses on as I'm looking at my list. I can't even read my own chicken scratching on this page. What's the next one? Oh, meeting tangents. And you know what? I've been guilty of this before too. I am not a huge fan of meetings. There are some people that I think live for a meeting, would have a meeting at the drop of a hat for meeting's sake, just because maybe they're more social type person than what I am. Uh, Personally, I think sometimes a lot of time is wasted in meetings, and the times I'm called upon to run a meeting, I like to keep them as short as I can and as tight as I can to whatever agenda we need to do. It's like, I know they're necessary sometimes, just to communicate. When you're working on projects or whatever, it's important to get together and communicate. I totally get that. But sometimes, when you're in those meetings that drone on, and you sit there wondering, what is the point of all this? Why do I need to be here? Um, that can get, that isn't the kind of meeting I like being a part of. And so when you're in a meeting and someone tries to, I say tries to, they probably don't do it deliberately, but they derail it with some side point minutia, something that is off point, off kilter, not of interest to anybody other than the person who brought it up. And then they drone on and on about it because, well, they like hearing themselves talk or whatever. You might say that about me trying to do this YouTube video, but I can assure you I do not like hearing myself talk. uh, but I'm sure probably people know the type. You have, say, a limited time period, half hour allocated for a meeting, and the moment you get into it to try to discuss what the purpose of the meeting is, someone brings up something else entirely and then steals time from everyone else while they go over their point or whatever. Or just in the middle of it, start up a side conversation that may be something important, but isn't the focus of the meeting, and they just end up taking it off the rails. And part of the challenge of being a leader is when this happens, how do you deal with it? And I'll be transparent. I'm not the world's best leader, and I don't find a lot of fun or joy calling people on the carpet, um, to try to. I remember doing it a few times this past summer when I set up some meetings that were 15 minutes. That's all the longer they were. That's all the time I wanted to take from people. But if you're going to have a 15-minute meeting, you got to tend to business. And, getting in there and first, if people show up and then there's miscellaneous chit chat, it can seem rude. If I'm the one leading the meeting, it's like, come on, let's tend to business here to get this done. Kind of like the comment I made where I like coming into work and taking a little time to get prepared. Maybe that's how some people get into a meeting, is with some miscellaneous chit chat or whatever to help them get in the mood. But when you only have a few minutes, you have to stay on task. And so one of the challenges to me is, how do you politely tell someone to shut their mouth, or to acknowledge that their point is important, but this isn't the venue for that particular concern, and nor is this the time. That seems to me always to be the challenge. When in on the inside, what I feel is like I'd like to tell them just to shut up, and or to quit being impolite. Um, that isn't typically what I got to get pretty worked up to speak to someone else that way. Let's just put it that way. But I used to be on a board of a little nonprofit organization. I think I've maybe mentioned it in a previous episode. But when you're on a board, you have opportunity to interact with people, and you get those kind of dynamics that happen all the time. And I remember we had a chair, the chair of the board that we had for a number of years. She was outstanding at keeping us on task. And you know what? Sometimes I am the one that takes things off because there's something of interest to me, and sometimes it's my fault. And I just appreciated her ability to keep us on task, in the meetings, to be respectful of all of our time. And she just had a nice way to do it. But I realize not everybody appreciates that in a person, because if you're expressing a thought, when you're in a group of adults, nobody likes to be told, hey, up, or uh, we don't want to talk about that now. It's like, well, it's important to me. So anyway, that's kind of a pet peeve that I have, and it's always a challenge trying to figure out how to get things back on course, so you make the best use of your limited time. And speaking of limited time, I am just looking at the clock here and I realize we've already hit another half hour, so I'm gonna just terminate the episode there. And thank you very much for coming by here to give a listen and listen to me rant and rave about my particular pet peeves and whatnot. But hey, I know I'm not the only one that has those. I'm guessing you have a full stable full of them too. So thanks for listening to mine, and please do share in the comments if you have a particular pet peeve that you would like the whole world to know. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one. And goodbye.